The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jameson Rabbit, and the man looking so comfy right now in a different part of the world is I don't even know what to say about you. You look as comfy as I could ever wish to be. His name is Mike Roth.
Well, you're looking pretty dapper in the is that purple?
It's
is
a purple
that
robe.
Suede? I just want to touch it.
Yeah, it's a very soft purple robe. It's comfy.
I got the Spider-Man. I got another one. It's Star Wars, but that's expected. I gotta do Spider-Man every once in a while.
Why don't you explain why we are the way we are?
Well, you know what? It's about time we took advantage of being quarantined. I mean, yeah, we dressed down for all the other episodes, but get comfy with it. Here we are. This is how my bed is usually at night. I don't like things straight or tucked. I like them all lumpy. And
Mike says, "Let's do it. Let's do it in our pajamas. Let's do the show in our pajamas." And I said, "All right." And then I realized, I don't know if I really have pajamas. I don't know.
The crazy thing is I get undressed to put on pajamas, but after the show, I got to put clothes back on again. But I am super comfy right now. I got the little flannel fleece,
getting it all.
That toesies hanging out. Yeah,
we're losing viewers as we speak, Mike. All right, let's get started with what we have this week. We got a few movies and a series, a TV series we're going to talk about. I'm going to get it started with a film that I saw this past week called Bacurau. It is a Brazilian film. Stars Barbara Colin as a lady named Teresa. And the movie kind of spends a fair amount of time introducing us to this very poor area in Brazil, and specifically this little tiny village of Bacurau. And it's one of those little villages where they struggle to get food, to get medicine. Their water supply has been cut off mostly by a warlord up river from them, and so they've been blocked off from a lot of things in the world. And Teresa is a girl who kind of has gone to America, and she's come back to her little town. Her mother's dying. She comes back, she brings medicine, and right away, strange things start to happen in and around this village that are really difficult to explain. One of those things is that they find that their village is no longer on the map. You go on Google Maps, satellite images, everything. The village is non-existent to the rest of the world. They're no longer there. That's kind of interesting. Other interesting thing is they have Wi-Fi because they can find this out. But going on Google Maps, we're not there. And then they lose what internet signal they do have, just as these two strangers on European motorcycles pass through town. Suddenly they lose their internet signal. Things are acting real strange. They don't get a lot of strangers that come through town there, in the mountains. And there's also a flying saucer looking drone that pops in and out, kind of unexplained for a while. You're like, wait a minute. I'm understanding this drama about this poor little town. What's the flying saucer doing? And then you begin to realize that this is like the perfect little place for some very twisted individuals to carry out some nefarious plans on people. Basically, they've erased this town from all the rest of the world, right? Nobody knows they're there. And so now you can do things to them, like maybe you have a group of crazy people that pay money to hunt humans. And that's their sport. And so it's interesting. You also have Udo Kier, who always plays a sinister bad guy. He always plays a terrifying bad guy. And he has led this group of people who want to carry out some nefarious plans on these poor townsfolk because nobody's going to miss them. Um, but but what they don't realize is that the heart of this village and these people are generations of having to fight for everything, and generations like of just, they know how to kill people who want to do this little village harm. It's
Yeah.
passed down, and they will not go easily. And so they're a strong people, and they're not going to be exploited. They're not going to be taken over. And it's a weird movie. Even the group of like antagonists and the bad guys, there's like layers within this group of
Uh-huh.
they're not all just like in lockstep. We're gonna go into this town and do some things. Like there's weird dynamics between all them. And it's a very strange film. It's a film that's kind of unlike anything I've seen recently. It's beautiful. I mean, the shots of the mountains and just it's gorgeous. But it takes some twists and turns along the way that I was not expecting.
Oh, what kind of genre is this? For some reason, I feel like it could be horror or comedy. I'm not really getting it. Meh.
It's it starts off very much drama, and then it becomes more of a almost like a thriller
Okay.
as things start to turn. Like it starts off and you really take a lot of time getting to know this village and the dynamics with them. And then and it's all in Portuguese until you introduce the the bad guys who are Americans and Germans, then they speak English. So you have this back and forth. And once they're introduced and their plan is introduced, then it becomes more of like a thriller, as they think they're going into this town to do some slaughtering, and the town folk have other ideas.
Uh-huh.
Uh, yeah, it's an interesting movie. I really enjoyed it. My buddy Danny gave me a recommend on this. Said you should check this trailer out. It looks insane. It's got flying saucers and poor villagers, and uh, and I dug it. I really enjoyed it. So I think I give it 4.5 stars.
Whoa.
Bacurau? Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
it was a
Uh,
fun time.
yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. That it sounds unusual. Sounds like something that'd be stuck in your memory, like at the end of the
Yes,
year when we're trying to figure out what were the movies that we really liked this year, and we're like, oh, yeah, that it sounds
it
pretty
was one of
cool.
those movies that had me thinking about it the rest of the day, like
Mm-hmm.
sorting out things in a movie. Like, well, that's weird. Oh, this makes sense now. Yeah, I enjoyed it. So check it out.
Very cool.
The next movie we have, sir, is a film that we caught on Apple TV. Correct?
Yes, which I'm kind of surprised because I have Apple TV, but I haven't really found anything that I was like, oh yeah, this is something great. This is something that I would subscribe to Apple TV for, you know? What I'm talking about is The Banker, directed by George Nolfi. This is based on a true story back in the 50s, 60s, where Anthony Mackie, he plays Bernard Garrett. He is a young man at a young age. He was trying to get insider information on banking and try to figure out how to make his fortune in life. But it's really hard to do when you're a black man in Texas. He moves out to LA. He's extremely smart. Um, he's trying to raise his family and make his fortune, and he wants to do it in ethical ways. He doesn't want to, go make loopholes or anything like that. He runs into Joe Morris, who's played by Samuel L. Jackson, who is just really kind of a playboy club owner, broady. He drinks during the day.
Samuel
Bernard
Jackson.
Gar- yeah, Bernard Garrett doesn't want anything to do with him, and
Yeah.
I actually thought Samuel L. Jackson wasn't going to be in it much because there was a huge conflict in the beginning, but as a black man, even in LA, it was difficult for him to make the connections he needed to make in order to make his fortune, which at this point was going to be real estate. He did find someone to back him up, but deal because of racism didn't go through. Um, and he ends up having to go back to Joe Morris in order to get the financial backing in order to create the empire he wanted. It started off with buying one of the tallest buildings in LA. Now, they have problems getting things sorted around because they're both black men. So they end up getting help from a white guy that Bernard Garrett hired to do some contracting jobs. This man is Matt Steiner, played by Nicholas Hoult, and he is pretty much the face man. He's a smart guy himself, but compared to Joe Morris and Bernard Garrett, he is nowhere.
He doesn't know math. He doesn't know banking or business.
No, but he's able to like rehearse things. He's a good actor. He's a great
He's
performer.
got superpowers in memory and ability to pick up golf and mathematics in a short amount of time.
And at this point of the movie, it felt a lot like a heist movie. You know,
Yes.
they're going.
Yep.
It's fun. There's a lot of action. Well, not action, but you get that intense feeling. Like, is it going to work? Are they going to be able to pull it through?
They're training him. They're casing the joint basically, and setting their team up, giving him the tools that he's going to need to carry off the heist. It's a total heist movie.
And I love this. And that's just half of the movie. And then the second half of the movie, it's the next step, which is even more impossible for black people. And during this time, is to buy a bank in Texas. And the reason why Bernard wanted to do this is because he's from this area, and he realizes that black people can't even get into a bank unless they are helped. So he has to buy a bank, and that way he could give black business owners in his neighborhood the capital so they could expand their businesses and become better instead of being oppressed.
If the bank won't work with you, then make the bank work for you, basically.
Yeah, or just buy the bank.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, again, they still have problems. So they get Matt Steiner again to be the white face of the company, trying to keep that the partnership with black people it's impossible. It's not something that's going on. And it seems to be working fine. But once the locals find out, then there's conflict again. And then instead of a heist movie, it becomes more of a drama movie where you can't trust people. And things are scary. And you have to go through all these stupid little menial tasks, like dress up like help in order so you could talk to your white-faced partner. I thought it was powerful. It's very educational on what people had to do in order to get ahead in life. And it's based on a true story, and unfortunately it has the typical ending where Bernard and Joe were framed, and Matt Steiner, he ended up I don't want to give away the story, but
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's 1960s in the South. I liked the beginning, how they set up really the state of civil rights movement at the time and the structure that had been put in place. I mean, this is really, we're dealing with this today. The structure that was put in place to keep African Americans down and to keep them from being able to live the American dream. And they introduce all that, and then it makes it their plan even more audacious when they kind of unveil, first there's some success, we get a building, we get a couple, and then it's like, oh, we're going for it. We're really going for it. We're going to Texas. And the motivations behind why Bernard Garrett wanted to do this. And even when Joe Morris is like, I don't know if that's a good idea, man. We're exposing ourselves to a lot here. He's like, no, I want to give back. It's not just about, let's take our money and run. Like, no, we're doing this for altruistic reasons. And that's really, like you said, the characters they set up at the beginning. Bernard Garrett wanted to do the right thing. Joe Morris is more like, we can get out of here, and count our money later.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And I mean, these two are both great actors. Nicholas Hoult is a really good actor. I really like him. And I thought he played this really well too. In kind of a tough role to kind of play bumbling sometimes, but not be I don't think anyone felt stereotypical in their role to me. Nia Long is in this as Eunice Garrett, the wife. I wish she would have
Yeah,
had more to do in this movie. I really like her, and she
she
just
did
kind of
have some
popped in and out.
powerful moments too.
Yeah,
And this movie is a lot more in depth and complex than, even though I pretty much described most of the movie, there's a lot going on, a lot of messages that are going on throughout this entire movie, mostly based around racism. But there's a lot of information here, and they give it to you in a very entertaining, easily digestible way. I was really impressed with this movie.
yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought that it felt like, to me, I don't know, that the kind of resolution, the final chapter, got a little long for me.
Mm-hmm.
I saw where this was going. It's like, oh man, the unraveling of everything. I'm like, let's just get to it because I know this is killing me. I know it's going to happen. It's not going to be great. But I mean, obviously, Anthony Mackie, Samuel L. Jackson, they've worked together multiple times, in the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a nice chemistry. Um, yeah, I enjoyed it, and it's not just the built-in racism in this movie, but it's also just the class system and everything, and how you have to do the dance. And even Nicholas Hoult, as the white guy, couldn't just walk into the bank and get what he needed. Like, no, no, no. To get what you need with this type of guy, you have to play golf. You have to do the dance for them. So it's not just the
Mm-hmm.
African Americans who had things put upon them, but here it is. The white guy, you think he's got it easy. It's like, no, you have to do the dance to make these guys take you in too.
Yeah,
And
you
I
have
kind of like that.
you had levels. It was like, yeah, as a black man, you can't get anything done. But if you're not part of elite class where you learn golf and you go to a college and stuff, so you could really spout out the thing, like with Matt Steiner's faking the numbers thing, where he just
Right.
remembered the numbers because that's what
Yeah.
he could do and made it sound like math. It's like that's the kind of stuff that you had to impress. And because he wasn't an elite, he didn't have the right connections. So there's
Exactly.
many different levels to it. And the only complaint I have is how they ended the movie. The last pretty much 10 minutes. Um,
Hmm.
they turn it around and they give kind of a happy everything is great type. But then they go through like
The
what
prologue
happened to him later.
or the
It's like
epilogue. Yeah.
uh,
Terrible things
Bernard
happen.
and Bernard Garrett and Joe Morris, they had 176 properties. They were the richest black men in America. They were rich, according like amongst normal people
Yeah.
or everybody, and they had it all stolen away from them
Yeah. The
due to
government took it
racism.
all.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's all gone, and that that was sad. And really, they didn't need to spin it to a happy moment at the end because
No,
it,
and they lost. They owned multiple banks, and
Mhm.
the terrible racist guy who worked there ended up buying the banks for pennies on the dollar. It's like,
Yeah,
and he got away with it.
yeah.
Horrible.
It's, I mean, I like being happy at the end of the movie. It's always nice, but I think it kind of ruined the impact of what actually went on. This wasn't a happy ending story. The happy
No,
ending would be there wasn't any racism and everything worked out well because
people
they worked
realized
out
they were
hard.
wrong and they apologized to them.
Yes, that is the
Fortunately,
happy ending,
that's
but that's
still
not the
not the
true
way it goes.
story. So, yeah.
No. Ultimately, what would you give the banker?
I give it a 4.5. I really did
Nice.
enjoy this movie a lot. The acting was phenomenal. It was just that ending.
I love it. I gave it a 3.5. I enjoyed it. It's fun. It's cool to find something just sitting there on Apple TV with big time
Yeah,
actors on it. I was surprised when I discovered this because like you said, like they've had amazing stories and things like that, but nothing that I've been blown away by.
yeah.
So,
Amazing Stories didn't blow me away. They had a Picard on there for a while. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I found out that you have to buy to
right.
get the rest
It's
of
a
it.
teaser.
So yeah, it's a teaser. I'm hoping Apple comes out with more movies like this because this was fantastic. But yeah, who knows?
All right.
Hopefully the theater's
Uh,
just open, and then I don't have to do that
we'll see.
at all.
Next up, we have because it was kind of a lean week for movies this week,
Yeah.
so we have a series that debuted on Netflix. I was kind of excited for, just because of the cast and it seemed fun. Space Force, Steve Carell's return to television, more or less, to sitcoms, kind of. Space Force is it's a show about the people tasked with creating the Space Force that we're all going to be getting soon. And Steve Carell stars as General Naird, the 5-star general of the Air Force, who's been put in charge of creating the Space Force. So you have John Malkovich as Dr. Mallory, who is like the head scientist working with him to make this happen. And you have the government brass and NASA scientists, and each episode is like another crisis in their efforts to kind of make this happen. And General Naird is the general who doesn't really understand the intricacies involved in creating this.
Yeah.
He also has a wife played by Lisa Kudrow, who finds herself in prison, and a teenage daughter played by Diana Silvers, who really just wants some of his time, and he's too busy creating Space Force. And it's kind of this dynamic between the government side of things and like the NASA side of things as this is being created. You also have Ben Schwartz, who's one of my favorite comedic actors right now, as like their PR guy. He's crazy every time he shows up. You have Jimmy O Yang as one of the head scientists, and Don Lake, he's a general, but he's basically the receptionist for Steve Carell's character, even though he's a general. I don't know.
Fred Willard too, which was nice
Fred Willard's,
to see.
Yeah, the late Fred Willard. This is his last thing that he did. Nice to see. The series, so it's 10 episodes. The series starts off a bit rough, I think. Very dry. Like not the comedy I was hoping and expecting. I don't know. There's moments. I think the series kind of gets its footing as it goes along after a couple episodes, but I think it's really uneven throughout the entire run. Like it never quite hits its stride the way I was hoping for. I don't know. You watched the first couple episodes of this. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, the first one, I thought it didn't really draw me in. I see where they were going. They put out all their stars. I was very excited to see all these people play. I love John Malkovich. I think Steve Carell is great. But the first one just felt like teasers for what's coming up. Steve Carell's wife is in prison. You don't know why. It felt dry, like Steve Carell didn't really have his footing yet on how he wanted to portray his character. By the second episode, things get crazy, and then Steve Carell, he becomes the kind of bumbling leader, where I'm going to try all these stupid ideas and see if they'll stick while all the smart people are telling me you're doing it wrong, and I'm going to ignore that advice. And by the end of the second episode, it's like, you know what? I liked it, but it's not hooking me in enough where I wanted to watch more, because there's so much else out there right now. And even though this had great star power and I was excited to watch a couple episodes, it pretty much stopped at a couple of episodes. And if I didn't have the time to watch it, I wasn't really anxious to drop everything I was doing so I could see another episode. Maybe if I kept on going with it, I would see that Steve Carell had his stride. I don't know.
Kind of, but really it's the dynamic between his character and the strict military man and John Malkovich's kind of opposite persona. I think that's kind of the best part of it. But like I say, it's bumpy the whole way. Like I don't feel like it ever finds its footing throughout the series. Like I was enjoying it, but it wasn't drawn in. It was like, I should watch another episode. But it ends on cliffhangers, but it never was like, oh man, I can't stop this. There's some absurd moments like in each episode. As they're trying to get to the moon to build a military base. That's kind of the thing, and the rest of the world is following suit. And so there's some absurd things in each episode, but I don't know, it's uneven to me. I found myself like if John Malkovich or Ben Schwartz weren't on the screen, I found myself like, okay, I'll put up with this, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, I mean, I would watch another season. The season ended on a big cliffhanger, of course, but I really would hope that it would get better with the next season.
Yeah, I'm behind on a lot of different shows, and I don't think I'm going to get back to this unless all of a sudden people are like, you got to give it another chance. And people have done that with other shows with me, and I watch a couple more episodes, and I'm like, nah.
Nope.
I'm going to watch something else. There's so much out there.
There is. So Space Force on Netflix. I think it's a middling thing. It's nothing you have to rush out to see, to binge watch or anything like that.
Are we going to give scores?
I don't know. I'd give it a 3.
Okay,
2.5,
that's
3.
what I gave it. I gave it a 3.
Yeah.
It's nice to see, and mostly it's because of the star power.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of star power, sir, let's move on to our next iteration of our Spielberg Summer Blockbuster series. This time, we are moving up to the summer of 1989, where Mr. Spielberg returned to make one last good version of this franchise. What are we talking about?
Oh, we're talking about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This time, it's Harrison Ford. You've seen the other 2 episodes. We all know the Indiana Jones story. This time, an art collector appeals to Indiana Jones to embark to find search for the Holy Grail.
We're looking for the Holy Grail.
We're looking for the Holy Grail. Indiana Jones ends up partnering up with his dad, who they both seem to be dating the same evil Nazi.
Sure.
His dad played by Sean Connery, and Sean Connery's role in this is funny. And I like the fact that Sean Connery plays Harrison Ford's aging father when they were really only 12 years apart.
Yeah.
I like this movie a lot. It is my second favorite Indiana Jones movie.
Mine too.
The ending, though, I don't like that whole Holy Grail tunnel bit. Yeah.
I love bringing Sean Connery in is like the best bit of stunt casting ever. Like we're gonna do this movie. We're gonna have Indy's dad. Who's it gonna be? Sean Connery. First off, let's not explain the Scottish accent. We're not even gonna talk about one of them having an accent.
No.
But it's great adventure. There's more fighting Nazis, and the best part I think about this movie is you get a little insight into who Indy really is by first seeing young Indy, River Phoenix playing a young Indy, and then, Sean Connery is the dad kind of just dropping tidbits about Indy in there, and you find out what his real name is and how he got the name Indiana, and just fun little things.
I forget the timeline. Steven Spielberg did make a television show called
that came after this.
Okay.
Yeah, directly after this movie.
I like that a lot too.
It was a good show, a good series.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of memorable moments in here. I mean, Indy meets Hitler. Yeah, they're on the Zeppelin, no tickets. The back and forth between Ford and Connery. It's great. And I was reading, Steven Spielberg said this is his favorite film of the franchise. Yeah. He loves it. He had a ton of fun with it. Why wouldn't you?
Did George Lucas help write all these, or it was just okay?
Yeah, this was his third film writing with Lucas. Yeah, This was kind of the end of that. 1989. This was the number 2 movie of the year. Do you know what movie was number 1 in 1989?
No, Batman.
That it was Batman.
Have to be Batman.
Yeah,
it finished took me a little bit to. I was trying to think what was so
Batman,
popular
1989.
back then. Yeah, I had a lot of Batman clothes back then.
Everyone did. Mike was doing the bat dance out in the street. He couldn't get enough of it.
I had both albums, the Prince album and the orchestra of Batman. But of course, we're not talking about Batman right now.
No, we're talking about Jones and the Last Crusade. Great movie. And this will be the last of the Indiana Jones movies that we get to talk about for this series because The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was a box office disappointment. So it did not make our list, unfortunately.
Yep.
Or fortunately. All right, before we move on, we want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, The Palace here in Sun Prairie. Of course, thank you for sponsoring this program throughout all this. We support you. They support us. It's great. And they are continuing their curbside service. We encourage you to check out their app. And they got a lot of fun things going on. And I'm just really hopeful that we get to go in there sometime soon before the summer's over. I can't wait to have a chat with our good buddy Tom Reichel, the GM there. He's good stuff.
I think we should have one more pajama episode with Tom at the theater.
With Tom?
Yeah.
Oh, why not?
Yeah, this is really comfy. And I find that I do the more concerned lean in when I don't have a desk or if I'm standing up straight.
I love it. Good thoughts. All right. Next week, sir, we have a few films. We have a film called The Last Days of American Crime. It's on Netflix. It stars Sharlto Copley in a future where the U.S. broadcasts a signal that makes it impossible for anyone to knowingly commit unlawful acts. I don't know, but I love Sharlto Copley. He's crazy. So we also have on Hulu a film called Shirley, starring Elizabeth Moss and Michael Stuhlbarg. It's a dramatic thriller. Elizabeth Moss and dramatic thrillers. I'm all about that. For our Spielberg Summer Blockbuster next week, we are going to War of the Worlds is going to be our film that we'll be talking about. Tom Cruise running from aliens.
I didn't think this one would have made that much money.
It made $1 bajillion. Yeah.
Yes.
So look forward to that. Amongst other things, will we be in our pajamas? What will we be doing? You'll have to tune in to find out. But until that time, I'm Jameson.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.